You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are The Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building, part of the Breakfast Club team, Angela Rye.
Good morning.
Good morning,
AR. How y'all doing?
What's happening?
A lot.
Update us. Where should we start?
I feel like we should go to the Trump stuff last.
Okay.
But I will say that this is Thursday was the 1 year anniversary for the Robert Mueller investigation.
It's been a year since they started that investigation?
Yes. And it's crazy because what I know a lot of Republicans are saying, particularly Trump supporters, is that it's a witch hunt. And it's not a witch hunt. It's just very multi-layered, a multifaceted investigation with a lot of players. The Senate Judiciary Committee released some really damning testimony from Donald Trump Jr. That could potentially implicate him. So that's the short version. But I think there's a lot happening within our community alone, whether it's the policing of black bodies throughout the country. It doesn't matter what geographic area you're in or other political interests that we have.
What do you think about all these white people calling the police on black people for no goddamn reason?
I mean,
it's so ridiculous.
It's not only ridiculous. I don't know if I'm more upset about the fact that it's been happening for years and just never really caught on tape, and we know that, right? Mm-hmm. Or if it's the number and the frequency of the incidents. And in my mind, I can't help but to tie that to Donald Trump's rise, right? Mm-hmm. Like, people are emboldened in their white supremacy. They feel like they are entitled to be here, and all of the rest of us who helped build it, who helped to support this country, who have founded businesses and are going to school and paying tuition, and we don't belong. Mm-hmm. So I was looking at the number of incidents like this morning and was just getting more upset. So we have the Yale student, the black woman graduate student in her dorm room, common area, getting the police called on her.
Falling asleep.
Yeah, like all of us do in school. Right. Absolutely.
That was like a scene out of Dare White People.
It feels
like that was an episode.
Yes. So there's that issue. That, of course, the two black men getting arrested at Starbucks. Shakisha Clemens at the Waffle House. Not just arrested, but dragged out of her clothing.
Sexually assaulted, I call it.
Yeah, I mean, and there have been a lot of folks who've said the same thing. Fortunately, at least in Shakisha's case, there will be a rally. There's a training to help people understand how to motivate and activate it when they're surrounded with issues like this.
But she's being charged.
Yeah, and that's what the rally's really all about. Waffle House, one, you need to be accountable for this because they said that the officer acted appropriately. Mm-hmm. But also because the charges should be dropped against her.
There shouldn't even have been charges.
There should never have been charges.
She's complaining about her cutlery. She wants plastic cutlery, and then all of a sudden the cops are called, and then she's dragged on the ground, and her clothes are off.
And May 20th is the rally.
And the fact that everybody was around not doing anything. Like, if I was in a restaurant and something like that happened, I would feel like you have to step up.
But people could have also been very afraid. Like, when you interfere now with police investigations or police issues, even recording now, even though that is squarely within our rights, we can record police interactions.
Why do cops saying you got to stop recording me? Don't put your camera down.
Why? Because they try to use the force of their intimidation to get you to banish your rights, to say, you know what, I don't have rights, let me just do what you say because I might die. You absolutely can record, and you should.
We're getting to a tipping point in this country, though, because you're putting us in like very precarious situations. Like, how am I, as a man, supposed to sit there and watch another man do that to a woman I love? Like, I don't care if you got a badge, a gun, or not. Like, I just don't think I could personally just be like just sit there and allow that to go down.
I don't think we should watch whether the officer was male or female, and the victim, because that's who they are at this point. Victims was a male or female, or doesn't identify either way. Like, we should not sit idly by and watch that happen. And there also should be repercussions for the businesses that are allowing this to happen, saying they acted appropriately, or just trying to let's just pass this by. I don't know if you heard about the LA Fitness issue in New Jersey. 2 black men in New Jersey. Yeah. For 8 years, a member for 8 years, brought in a guest pass, a guy that had a guest pass. They were kicked out of the gym, and the police were called on them. A black man in Memphis, Tennessee, real estate developer, scoping out a property that he was interested in buying. White woman calls the police on him.
I just seen that video this morning. Yeah.
It's insane.
I love how the cop reacted in that situation.
That's true.
How he should have reacted. That was one thing that but why is she calling the cops at all? Like, that's so ridiculous.
And
And you know what? There should be repercussions against people who call the cops for dumb reasons.
And how come nobody ever calls the
That
cops
should be
on
a
DJ
crime.
Khaled when he goes to the gym? Because he's not doing anything.
Okay, you know what? Yeah, you're so off message right
But
now.
it should be something wrong with you calling the police for a stupid ass reason. That like, what can that should be a crime? You should get charged.
Yes,
for
and
wasting time and
at least
taxpayer
fined.
dollars.
At least fined, and in some instances that does happen. It does not happen in our case. I think that it's great that you pointed out the fact that the officer reacted much differently, and the fact that we're raising it as, oh my God, well, this officer did the right thing is also bad. Like, we should not be like surprised when an officer does the right thing.
Look at that.
That's right.
Who else we got?
We have Jennifer Schultz, who's the white woman in Oakland.
I love her though.
Why? Because now she's a
That
meme?
meme is so amazing. That meme is so amazing.
But it's bad. You called the police on an Oakland barbecue? That's
crazy.
what we're doing now?
That is crazy.
You mad because it's
Well, they should have gave us some ribs.
Like,
maybe
you're not
she
supposed
wanted to
be
bring
here.
her potato salad like the
Nobody want that.
SNL skit.
Did you-
And then finally, there's the issue of the police being called on the black women who were playing golf too slowly.
Oh yeah, I remember
Too slowly.
That was
as
crazy,
if
too.
that's a crime.
But what about the 65-year-old woman that was being dragged out of her car by the
Yes.
police?
Yeah, I mean, so we didn't even get to police brutality. Like we didn't even get to that. We talked about
These are
incidents
people-
strictly in places of business or the Airbnb. We didn't talk about Airbnb
Oh,
either.
right.
Airbnb situation.
It's crazy, and the woman was detained at the airport. Like, there's so many of these issues happening, and again, I just have to say, I know that they've been happening for years. We have friends who these things have happened to, but I think it's on the rise, and people are emboldened in their supremacy. And it's a huge issue.
What do you do with people like Aaron Schlossberg? He's an attorney. He was in Fresh Kitchen in New York. Started screaming on the people because they were speaking Spanish. He told them that he's going to call ICE on them. They need to be deported. Oh, you ain't seen that one yet.
I didn't see that.
Oh, wow.
I did not see that.
And he's an actual attorney. We have his place of business. We know where he works. He works in Midtown Manhattan. He's on the front page of the New York Daily News this morning. How do you handle situations like that?
Listen, I think it goes right back to the same thing. It's not just black bodies that are deemed violent. It's not just us that causes people to fear. When Donald Trump ran, he ran on white fear of them losing ground in some way. And those targets were on our backs. Remember, when he announced his campaign, he talked about Mexicans being drug dealers and rapists. Right now, there's a discharge petition being circulated in the House of Representatives. What that means is there's a bill considering immigration proposals that would push back on a lot of the bigotry associated with what Republicans have been pushing because of Donald Trump to protect immigrant rights. There are Republicans who are in vulnerable congressional districts that are like, we actually probably need to vote on this because we could lose in the midterms. So I'm just saying that they've been trying to avoid the issue and just continue to play into the messaging without considering any bills to remedy some of the things that we're seeing, folks who are dreamers, DACA recipients in this country, and other things. They're trying to avoid it and just say, well, let's just get through the midterms and then consider the bill on the other side of that.
Why isn't there more focus on the midterms?
I think there's a lot of focus on the midterms.
I don't feel like the community is energized about the midterms.
Oh, you're talking about black folks?
Yeah.
The culture.
The culture. I agree with you. I think that there's a lot of focus in the Beltway, right, in D.C. on the midterms because this is an opportunity for Democrats to reclaim the majority. I don't think Democrats are going to get the majority because, to your point, folks aren't energized about the midterms because what they've seen is regardless of what party, you're affiliated with, racism is still alive. There are a number of Democrats who have disregarded many of the things that Congressional Black Caucus members have said for years inside the party, whether we're talking about how they spend their money, the races they choose to support, the candidates they choose to support. There's issues blowing up right now about candidates who are great, who look like us, that the Democrats aren't supporting. And so when you look at, I know I don't want to support Donald Trump or anybody that, is affiliated with those kind of policies, but I don't really see you going hard for me either.
Right.
It makes people apathetic. And so the only thing that I could suggest is that people start pushing their own agenda, their own issues. I think a good example of that is the Congressional Black Caucus just released what they call an omnibus bill, which means it's huge, all-encompassing. It touches a number of areas, 1,200 pages. And it's in response to when Donald Trump, during the election, said, what in the hell do you have to lose? They said, we have a lot to lose, and they issued this report.
1,200
right?
pages of it.
Yeah, they issued this report, and then the legislation came out of that report. They touch on everything from job creation opportunities to criminal justice issues, something that we know this administration also really, really struggles with. So that's one thing. I think the other piece is, as we get closer to the midterms, there are primaries. So Stacey Abrams is running for governor in Georgia. And this is, I think, case in point of what you kind of just hit on. Stacey Abrams is a Black woman. She started something called the New Georgia Project to register all of the people in Georgia, to help register folks who were not registered. Over 200,000 people filled out applications to register to vote through her program. The Democrats in Georgia decided, the establishment Democrats decided, this is going to sound really familiar. I'm going to see if you all know who it sounds like. They decided that she wasn't electable, right? This is a Black woman who's not married in Georgia. She's not electable. So Stacey Abrams' primary Democratic opponent is Stacey Evans. They ran a white Stacey who was electable against Stacey Abrams. So to me, it's like, okay, so what does electable looks like to you? It's white, right? It's somebody who's palatable. You decide what Georgia can and cannot handle, even though she spent all this time advancing the culture, making sure that our voices are heard, when the Secretary of State in Georgia has been working to suppress Black
Didn't they say the same thing about Barack?
That's what I'm saying. It sounds eerily familiar.
Gotcha.
So, when you run into that situation, at some point, Democrats are going to have to reckon with Black people for why our candidates are never electable. But we regularly win statewide. I give you Kamala Harris and Cory Booker. We've won, an election when you give us the support. And even when you don't give us the support, we can push forth our own candidates. So it's really traumatizing to see.
So Democrats don't give a damn about Black people either, is what you're saying?
I think that Democrats need to begin to prove that they do by supporting policies that support our interests. But when we tell you, or when the CBC is telling them, the Congressional Black Caucus is telling them, or other elected leaders are telling them they can run and win statewide, that they begin to put their money where their mouths are. Progressivism in and of itself does not mean that you are free from racism, right? White supremacy can absolutely go beyond party lines. And I think that we have to have some really tough conversations and then subsequent demands and actions for them to deal with that.
Isn't that the same shady boot politics that cost Bernie Sanders the nomination, though? Because in a way, they felt like he wasn't electable?
I think that the difference with Bernie Sanders is, and people could say it's semantics, Bernie Sanders is an independent who caucuses, meaning he mostly votes with and goes to the party meetings in the Senate with Democrats. That doesn't mean that he's a Democrat. So I think there was some frustration about fairness, right? How does an independent get to run in a Democratic primary? He shouldn't be a part of that primary. I understand that. I also understand why Bernie Sanders' outside the box thinking was so appealing to young people, because there are a number of them. And I even understand this. I say I vote for Democrats, but I don't consider myself a Democrat. I don't want to be boxed into any of your stuff.
You're a free thinker.
Oh, don't start. Please don't start that. Jesus, don't troll me today. Please.
Let's talk about that.
We just got free. Oh, you want to talk about that?
What did you think about some of the things that you heard come out of Kanye's mouth?
Kanye shouted you out on Twitter.
First of all, that's your fault.
Definitely Charlamagne's fault.
God. So to me, free thinking isn't throwing out random, unresearched, dangerous rhetoric that can end up causing us harm. That's not free thinking.
Because the word think is in there. And in order to think, you have to have some type of knowledge of
There's
what
a
you're
thought.
speaking on.
Yeah, and I think that you throwing out something to be sensational is just as dangerous as his president, who he claims and reps hard with the MAGA hat, too. Ultimately, I think that we have people who have never been monolithic. We've always had people who have ideas and thoughts and proposals and visions across the spectrum. That's not my problem. My problem is you're promoting someone who has said very damaging things about people that I love and respect. Anyone that tries to come at Congresswoman Maxine Waters is going to have to deal with me. I don't like the stuff about, such and such is on a plantation. I don't like the slavery analogies. I try to steer clear from them. I'm not always successful. But I think it's very dangerous for us to use rhetoric that causes more of a divide. So it's not. I'm not bound or I'm not enslaved because I think different from you, right? It's just that I know that I cannot count on Donald Trump. I have proof, not just from when he ran, but from the years, the number of decades he was in business for himself, the things he did to people who look like us.
And he's the opposite of of supporting free thinking Donald Trump is anyway, because anybody who disagrees with him or has anything to say against him, as any president should be able to go back and forth with somebody and actually even have people working with them that don't have the same exact thoughts, because that's how you advance. And he's against that. If you come up against him or don't agree with what he has to say, you're out of there.
Yeah, it's a yes man mentality. And he's a bully. Like, there's nothing free about someone who bullies people into supporting them. So I just, that was really frustrating to me. I think that.
So basically, you didn't appreciate Kanye's shout out, is what you're saying.
That wasn't a shout out.
Okay.
He was Googling.
He was trolling. He was trying to prove to you on social media that he was listening.
That he's doing his homework.
Meanwhile, he also put Tommy on there, so then he trolled you back a little bit.
Well, a little bit. But I was explaining to him, I was explaining to him why talking to those kind of people is dangerous. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no need to be having conversations with the Tommy Laurens of the world.
You had a conversation with Tommy Lawrence?
I did. You live and you learn.
Trust me, Angela, when I tell you we had a whole debate up here and I was very disappointed when that happened, but I think, you're right. You live and you learn.
The hard part, too, is you think about Dr. King. I can't help it, right? This is the 50th year, the anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King. And you can't help but to acknowledge, like, Dr. King sat down with his enemies. He sat down with people who didn't agree with him to try to convince them there was another way.
Malcolm X too. Today's Malcolm X's birthday, and he sat down with the KKK a lot because Elijah Muhammad told him to.
Yeah, I don't know if I would advise that, but I hear it, and I think the challenge for me is, at what point do you say, you know what, this is a bridge too far, I can't communicate with you, versus, okay, I'm interested in at least having a conversation. One thing I do want to acknowledge, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, who's been on the program, and Van Jones, who's a CNN colleague, they're working right now with the White House on some prison reform measures. I think that's phenomenal. The challenge I have is, how are you going to engage in criminal justice and prison reform, but you won't engage in sentencing reform, but not prison reform? So Jeff Sessions issued that memo, right, saying that we're rescinding this Sally Yates idea of closing down our relationship, ending our relationship with private prisons. So we're going to keep the private prisons relationship open, but I'm open to talking to you about sentencing reform. Those two things can't peacefully coexist. So I'm glad that they're having that conversation, but I'm eager to see what the subsequent policy looks like. The one thing that encourages me is the fact that the entire Republican Party is at least financially beholden to the Koch brothers. And Koch brothers, before Donald Trump was elected, this was a big platform for them. As well as Newt Gingrich. So maybe something good will come out of that.
One thing did come out of that good Twitter rant, though, was a good discussion. When Chance the Rapper tweeted out, all black people don't have to be Democrats. Now, I wish he'd have added more context to that
I wish
tweet.
he would have waited 2 weeks. Like, just not today.
Because I don't even understand who said that all black people have to be Democrats. Like, no one was ever saying that.
That's always been a thing, though. Let's not act like that hasn't.
No, but I think that's right. But I think, to Angela's point, that was not even a part of the conversation. And so what it felt like, at least reading it in that moment, was like, he had something to get off his chest. And I appreciate it. I was like, that's true. But I was like, damn, I wish we could have supported this.
Because it kind of went along with the whole
the
Kanye thing. Right. And for me, it's like, it's not just a party difference here. This is a human decency difference here. And I don't mind having the conversation about why Democrats don't always serve us right. But I do think that we need to differentiate between folks who have been good allies and supportive of black people within the party, as well as black Democrats who are carrying I just talked about this 1,200-page omnibus bill from the CBC. Well, it's not going to get considered because there are too many bigots in the House of Representatives, but it's a good start. And so we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. We do need to figure out reforms quickly, because I think this stuff is going to blow up.
What should we be demanding of Democrats?
We should be demanding of politicians overall, because once they're elected, they serve all of their constituents, regardless of whether we voted for them or not.
Do they really, though?
I said
they're
they should be.
They
should be, right? They should be. I think we should be demanding a lot. We should be demanding equity in the form of payment, in the form of ending wage disparities, ensuring workers' rights. There's a case before the Supreme Court right now. A gentleman by the name of Janus, his last name is Janus, was recruited by a Koch brothers funded entity, Americans for Prosperity, to sue about collective bargaining rights, about paying for labor union dues. That's going to gut labor unions, potentially. We should be demanding the protection of labor unions. Why would we not want workers to be able to protect themselves and advocate for themselves? Mm-hmm. We should be protecting and advocating for reproductive justice. We should be demanding an economy that serves all people, not just a minimum wage that's good, but a livable wage. There's so much. Sentencing reform, prison reform, criminal justice reform, equity in school funding.
Right.
Would you ever vote for a conservative?
Yeah, if they supported all that.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. My dad's mentor, I would encourage you all to look him up, Dr. Arthur Fletcher. He's the father of affirmative action.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was a Republican.
There you go.
You know,
you have good friends that are Republicans now?
You know, Angela, that's getting tricky. That's getting real tricky.
Paris Denard is a good friend.
I love Paris, but we've been fighting a lot.
Stop saying that, because you don't.
We've been
Nobody
fighting a
loves
lot.
Paris.
That's not true.
His mom.
That's not true. Jesus loves Paris.
White Jesus.
That's so rude. Paris, I do love you, but we fighting right now. I'm believing you gonna come out of second place. I'm gonna flash you with this phone the next time I see you. I tried once, it didn't work. I'm gonna try again. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
What do you think?
So yes, you do.
I do. I do. Actually, I also have I have a friend of mine who worked on Capitol Hill with me, who works in the Trump administration right now on the Domestic Policy Council, and this prison reform issue that he's working on with Van and with Hakeem Jeffries. Jerron Smith is actually doing some good work. I wish he would get out of the White House. He knows that. I've told him that. But I will say that so far what I've seen from Jerron is positive for us.
But what about people who feel like Donald Trump administration is doing some good things? They're saying the economy is good. They're saying
thanks, Obama.
They're saying that people are getting jobs now. You know, what do you say to people who say, well, Donald Trump, he is a racist, but the economy seems like it's doing all right?
Well, I would say, how are we doing? You know, if I remember when President Obama said a rising tide lifts all boats, and it infuriated me because I'm like, yo, everybody doesn't have a boat. You know, everybody doesn't. Some of us are out here on life rafts. Some of us are in the water and can't swim. Real talk. So I think that the issue I have is, one, we give credit to Donald Trump on the same economic indicators that people said weren't reflective of Barack Obama's successes. That's one challenge. I think the second challenge is most people know that economic indicators also lag, which just means that it takes time to see whether or not your policies have been supporting a better economy. And so probably about right now, these are Barack Obama's successes. These are the changes that he was making.
Because Barack Obama came into the White House with a lot of challenges, and it took some time to rebuild from that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You think about the whole issue of the bailout, the financial bailout with the mortgage bubble bursting. Unemployment for black folks was double the national. It's always double the national average, but it was in double digits. It was extremely high. We did a jobs initiative through the CBC to address it. And so, yes, unemployment overall is in single digits. Black unemployment overall is in single digits. But when you go to some of our hardest hit communities, it's still double digits.
Right.
Young black men, still double digits, extraordinarily high, completely disproportionately high. And, of course, we're overrepresented in the prison system. So I think that there are a number of things that still have to be addressed. What's not helpful is Donald Trump talking about immigrants as animals just yesterday.
Yes,
right?
That's on the front page of the paper.
Yeah. So what's not helpful is the rhetoric that he uses. He calls us thugs. Remember when he was in Chicago during the campaign? There's that. He said that he would pay the bail for the man who punched the black protester in the face. So if the economy's doing better, but it's at the expense of our lives, which we're also still seeing, I don't know that that's good.
I just don't see how people are going to win in 2020 or 2018 just being anti-Trump. Like, I feel like we have to be pro-people.
I think you have to be pushing a policy agenda that's going to change the current situation. I think the reality of that, though, is as long as Donald Trump is in the White House, we're going to it's going to be an uphill climb. We also should never forget the importance of local elections, of state-based elections. I think, again, going back to the Stacey Abrams point, we could really use that win. She would be the first Democratic governor in 15 years in Georgia, and she would be the first black woman governor in the country. And
really?
I would say, look at her record.
Wow.
Yes.
We need to have her up here.
Yeah, so I do want Stacey up here. I met Stacey when she did your Angela Rye State of the Union.
Oh, that's right. So, but I would also tell you there's I want to give you the primary date for Georgia voters. So the last date to early vote in Georgia is May 18th, and the primary is on May 22nd. again, do not be fooled by somebody putting another Stacey on the ballot. The Stacey that got a B from the NRA, by the way.
What's her last name?
Stacey Evans.
Is the one.
Stacey Abrams.
That's the one. Which one are we rooting for?
Stacey Abrams with an A.
Yeah.
Stacey
It
Abrams.
sounds like a Steve Harvey clothing line.
There you go.
Oh, my
Call
God.
it Abraham. Stacey Abraham. Because then that sounds black.
Or no, you know what you could do? Stacey Adams is the shoe. Think of Stacey Adams and the one with the A on the ballot is. You got an uncle that wears Stacey Adams.
I used to wear Stacey Adams.
No, you do not.
I think I got some at the house now.
No, you do not.
What's wrong with Stacey Adams?
Is he serious?
He's dead serious.
He's from South Carolina, though.
What's wrong with Stacey? I know Eddie Rod got some Stacey Adams.
Eddie Rod does not wear Stacey Adams. That's some country.
What's wrong with Stacey
Charlamagne
Adams?
is country.
Yeah, Charlamagne is country.
Let's
Do
never
you
forget.
really wear Stacey Adams?
I mean, I've had them before. I don't
He
have.
does.
I got some at the house. I'm sure.
Angela, if I show you some flashback pictures from when the Breakfast Club started,
What's wrong with Stacey
you will
Adams?
completely understand.
Well, guess what? I'm not gonna vote for Stacey Adams for governor then.
Stacey Abrams. You can't vote anyway. You don't live in Georgia.
Listen, it's more than Stacey running for governor too, though. It's a lot of black governors this year, right? Andrew Gillum.
Andrew Gillum is also running in Florida. Their primary is in June.
Okay.
Andrew is phenomenal, current mayor of Tallahassee. We had
him up here. Great guy.
And Collective PAC, again, is doing a lot of good work at recruiting minority candidates, people of color who are running, black folks who just want to make a difference. Shout out to Tammy Sawyer, also from Memphis, who just won the Shelby County Commissioner Democratic primary. She's doing amazing work. That's the woman who is responsible for the Confederate statue takedown in Memphis.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So that's huge. That's huge.
So tell Stacey come up here. We'd love to have Stacey up here. I think Andrew's actually coming back.
She probably going to have to come after the primary.
That's not the
Unless you guys
point.
will let her call in. You going to let her call in?
Yeah.
Yes!
Calling
Are we going to
on
be
is
in
effective,
Atlanta? Are we
though.
going to be in Atlanta next week?
You are?
We're trying to.
Monday.
We're trying to.
We're doing a
Stacey
photo
gotta
shoot for
do this-
Stacey Adams.
Abrams.
I know, but we're doing a photo shoot for Stacey
You're
Adams.
not doing a photo
No, we
shoot
not.
for Stacey Adams. You probably doing it by yourself.
Definitely
You
by
probably just
himself.
got an endorsement deal from them. They
Yeah,
want to
he
pay
said-
you a
What's wrong
full.
with Stacey
If he
Adams?
did it, he
I'm
about
trying to
to.
figure out what's wrong
They
with
about to
Stacey
play
Adams.
and pay him a full $5 for this endorsement.
You're going to see a tweet like, thank you.
We got $5.
So we're going to act like your dress name from Fashion Nova?
It's not. It's not. It's from Intermix. It's from Intermix.
We like
But I would
Intermix
wear a Fashion
online.
Nova thing.
Yeah.
Fashion Nova is not on the same level as Stacey Adams.
Ivanka
Ooh.
Trump owns Fashion Nova. You
No,
didn't
she
know
doesn't.
that? Yeah.
Don't
she-
listen
no,
to
she
him.
doesn't.
Such a liar.
Not
Fake
even
news.
to that.
Fake news. But she did get blessed by a rabbi that said black people look like monkeys or are monkeys. Did y'all hear about
Well,
that?
it
Yeah, I
makes
did hear
sense.
that.
What?
Yeah. Her and Jared Kushner got blessed by a rabbi who said that black people are monkeys and women who dress immodestly are animals. And he also called Ethiopian Jews cushy, which is supposed to be a very derogatory term.
Jeez.
So yeah, that's who they decided to. In church, we call that laying on a hand. So so no, for real, they got blessed by this Jewish rabbi.
Why'd they get so upset because Sarah Huckabee Sanders walked out of, what was it, a conversation with Palestine?
Oh, first of all, that wasn't Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Who was it?
That was Nikki Haley.
Nikki Haley,
which
my
you
bad.
should know, South
All white
Carolina.
women look alike.
Oh my God, she's not even all white. Isn't her
She
dad
ain't Native
Indian?
American, yeah.
I don't. It's not.
She's part Native American, yeah.
It's Native American.
Yeah.
It's not in East Indian. I think you just made that up. It's
Hold
fine.
on, let me Google.
Yeah,
Let
I'm
me
pretty
make
sure it's East
Crazy.
Indian,
Hold
but
on.
anyway, that's not that's not the point.
Let me Google.
Yeah, edit that out. You off. But I think she walked out because she is all the way in the tank for Israel, and I think what's challenging in her role as a UN ambassador is that you can't be impartial if you're all the way beholden to one interest. And it's so devastating because the day they opened up this embassy, so many Palestinians lost their lives.
Right.
For me, it was particularly resonant because when I went to Israel and looked across this wall with barbed wire, I've never been to South Africa, but it took me to a place from all of the things I read about South African apartheid to that. So I just feel like it's time for us to be allies. There are a number of Afro-Palestinians, a number of folks who've been oppressed by Israeli government. There have been challenges on both sides, but it's not the same, and I'm not equating the two. Palestinians are definitely oppressed, and there needs to be a lot of light shed on that issue. But
So that was disrespectful for her just to walk out,
it
right?
was
You
absolutely
didn't even have the conversation.
disrespectful. It was she wouldn't even hear them out. Not even
That's
willing to
awful.
hear out another side.
That's
Yeah.
not democracy.
I'm sorry. I thought that you knew that Trump was an authoritarian, and
Uh,
everybody
got you.
succumbs to the bully, as we talked about.
Got you.
earlier.
And you're right. She's Punjabi Indian.
Oh, you're welcome,
Mhm.
Stacey Adams.
So what's next for Angela Rye?
I don't know.
Not Stacey Adams, right?
Not Stacey Adams. So there's a lot of work that we have to do. I think for me, the most important thing is informing people as we get closer to the elections, as we go through this primary process, that we understand that voting rights are still very much being suppressed, that folks are very much still working against our interests. And it's time for us to stand up for ourselves, whether it's supporting ourselves, our own businesses, supporting Black banks, as we talked about ad nauseum, supporting community organizations that do this work on the ground. I also want to shout out Brittany Packnett, who is a key organizer with the folks on the ground for the Shakisha Clemens rally on Saturday, and helping to pull together that training so people know how to do this work on their own. It's so important right now. So I would just say, if I say anything, just like I told the graduates at Southern last week, our activism is no longer optional. Right. It's required of all of us. We have to figure out how to get in where we fit in and make sure that we're carrying and doing our part. It's just critical right now.
And the rally is at Saraland City Hall, 943 Saraland Boulevard in South Saraland, Alabama. Well, no, 943 Saraland Boulevard, South Saraland, Alabama. May 20th. Right. Starts at 1 p.m.
This Sunday.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, thank you for joining us as always.
Thank you.
And it's the Breakfast Club. It's Miss Angela Rye.